Changel out of the hold of Mesco. Good snap, good hold, and the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Good morning and a good Thursday morning to you and yours. Welcome to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman alongside the Ham and Eggers. I was thinking this morning that Casey McAllister, Paul Fritchner, good morning.
Good morning.
And to a slightly lesser extent, was with us regularly and now sits in the corner with the dunce camp on. That would be Brandon Seho. And, I was getting to thinking that you guys are so much of this show and have so many opinions and thoughts and insight. A little debatable there, but nonetheless, that you guys needed a nickname. And it seems to me the man who joins us later today, that being, of course, Tracy Jones, has nicknamed you guys the Ham and Eggers. I think that should stick. But before that happens, I'd like to hear your opinion on it.
I love it. I don't know about
I think
Paul
we're too
here,
far. I think the train is way too far down the tracks to backtrack now.
Well, I know, but we can come up with something different. I mean, it doesn't have to be the Ham and Eggers. Just because Tracy Jones said it doesn't mean that's something we ought to do, even though he's on every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30. He'll be with us today, obviously, Thursday at 11:30. But I just want to make sure you guys are comfortable with it, because I think it's something that, maybe with UDF we could get, like some of their cured ham up here in front of you guys over there.
Ham and egg sandwiches.
And, like a carton of eggs.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'm in, Tom.
Well, who's the ham and who's the egg?
Well, that's a good question. That was my next question.
Ooh.
I mean, because if Brandon's part of this whole thing, Eggers is plural, right? Ham and Eggers. So somebody could be the ham, and then the other two, the eggs.
Casey, you're the ham man. You're the protein of this show.
I'm the protein. Well, egg is protein too.
Yeah, but
By the way, Casey, you shaved the beard. We talked about that.
Yeah.
But you also walked into a upper echelon salon, apparently. And, I mean, you told them to look up, what kind of haircut you had in the past. They save all that stuff now on computers, so when you walk in the door, they know what you like, they know what you want. And you went with it looks like a number 3. I've had one of those.
Yeah. I went into the illustrious 6-star hair place called Sports
Yeah.
Clips down here in
I don't know.
right down the road here in
Hamilton?
Hamilton.
Is that what you're looking for here, Hamilton?
No, where we always get food at. We
Oh,
always talk about.
Okay,
we always
yeah.
get- what?
Bridgewater?
Bridgewater. Yeah,
Okay.
the Bridgewater Sports Clips.
Okay.
And
I tell you, they always do a great job. They're not a sponsor, but I've gone in there many times myself,
Yeah.
and they do a great job. So we're not sitting here beating anybody up, because
No,
I
no.
think your hair looks really good.
Well, I originally I thought that they had saved my haircut many times, because I just naturally always get the same one, and I
Yep.
just always say I would like the same thing. But I guess she just read it wrong, and she cut the top what was supposed to be the sides.
Oh, no.
So I don't know.
So here's the thing, Casey. You always have to go gradually down as you want to go shorter and shorter, because
Why?
Well, it's
Why go gradually down? I mean,
Well,
if you walk in the door and you want to go high and tight, you go high and tight.
well, but it seems like he didn't want to.
I didn't want to go
Yeah, see,
high and tight.
there's some reservation here,
And-
Tom.
Well, that's on you, Casey. That's not on somebody who cut it.
No, I'm not blaming her at all. But of course you would, Brandon. I just was in shock because I have to take off my glasses.
Yes, I do the
cannot
same.
See
Yep.
anything without it. And
Yep.
so when I put it back on to check it, I'm like, oh,
Sorry,
I
had
didn't
to
realize it
grow
was
back.
that short. And
Oh, what the heck just happened here? Is that what you were saying?
yeah, but I never tell them that to their
Yeah,
face.
you don't want to make them feel bad.
I just say it's a good look. I like it. And move on.
Our
I'm too
buddy
nice.
Sir Boy Wonder wants to know if you got the MVP from Sports Clips.
I did
don't know
not.
what that means. Maybe
So-
I shouldn't have even said that. That could be some Deshaun Watson sort of thing.
No.
No.
No. The MVP at Sports Clips, they give you a head massage and they give you like a hot towel and they massage your head. They
That's
shampoo
nice.
it and
Very
whatnot.
nice.
It's a very good deal. So
Your
you,
mom ran a sports clip on the west side, Brandon, 10 years. They do a great job there. We have lots in here today. Paul suggests that, or Daniel suggests, forgive me, that Paul is the ham and Casey is the egg.
maybe we should leave it to the chat.
Maybe we should leave it to the chat.
Well, I think they're on their game already.
Put it up
I mean,
to a
we
poll.
have hundreds, if not thousands, already chiming in.
Yeah,
You know,
Reed Mouse suggesting Mariana Mouse. His wife is she's a hairstylist at Revive right around the corner. She cut
Really?
she cut my hair my last haircut. She's been busy. I've been trying to get in to see her again for like 2 weeks. She's been busy.
that's the problem. My understanding is, and we're drifting off the world of sports here, but there's not a lot going on in the world of sports. But today, but to finish that thought, that seems to be sort of like a common theme with hairstylists, hair cutters, whatever it might be. And I think it's why a lot of us walk in from time to time to the Sports Clips of the world or whatever it might be, right? You know, local barbershop I go to occasionally in Milford, another one down in Marymount, because you can get in.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to a big-time stylist like Reed's wife, you're going to wait around. I mean, my wife says, I can't get into someplace. She can't get into someplace for like 3-4 months at a time.
Yeah.
She's not going to some Uber big-time joint.
Yeah, and that's
She used to when I worked for Fox. It was making real money, but not so much anymore. We come your way every day, as you know, from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern, and you can find us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. So we ask you to flip on the subscribe button there. You can jump on the notifications so when things come out, if you prefer to join us in podcast form, by all means, please do. We're everywhere you could find your podcast. Just to log into Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman and you're dialed in. Now, today we have Ace Boogie coming up. I'm excited for Ace Boogie. Ace Boogie, if you don't know, is the co-host of Cincinnati with our buddy Zim Hude. So they asked me to join their show a couple of weeks ago, and it was awesome. And I think Ace Boogie is one of the great nicknames of all time. We'll ask him where that came from. I think I know where it came from, but we're going to ask him for sure. Now, Casey, you have followed that show, that podcast, for quite a while. My son has too. I think that Zim Hude is an analytical dude. He looks at game film, but he's more on the emotional side, right? I think Ace Boogie is a little more, subdued, likes breaking it all down. Is that fair?
Yeah, I also think that out of the two, Ace is definitely a realist. He doesn't sugarcoat things. I've been watching Ace for a very long time, probably one of his very first subscribers. I remember the days where he was doing his halftime reaction to a Bengals game versus, I think it was the Ravens versus the Bengals. And he's out there, out in the street, and he's like, you want to know what Andy Dalton looks like right now? And he takes the phone and he just shows a giant trash can right out in the streets. And he's like, yeah, He looks like this trash can. So he's got some flair. He's got some emotion. I like him a lot. I think they're a great tandem. I think they have a really good dynamic.
They are.
And he's also one of the big guys in the Bengals community that people look to for opinions and whatnot. I think he's a great guy to have on our show. And one other thing that I love about him is that he kind of coined the Amigos, which is what we reference.
And they sell
Tyler
that
Boyd
attire.
Yeah.
They sell all that stuff, T-shirts, sweatshirts, whatever it is.
And when he checked in earlier, I saw that he had his Amigos shirt on.
Just Migos.
Migos.
Right.
And it looks great.
Did Thom
it's a great look.
Did Thom just get on you about
He did.
Migos?
No,
That's a
wait
point.
a minute.
No, that's good. That's a
wait
point for
minute.
you.
My
That's a point.
understanding is that, that Amigos thing has been used before. I mean, that goes back, I think, even to the Denver Broncos and their receiving corps, or the Redskins or somebody. I can't remember who it was, the former Redskins, now the Washington Football Wizards. But Migos is their term.
Yes.
So what's so significant, Paul, about that? I corrected him on that.
Because Amigos it's a rap group.
Migos is a rap group.
They are.
Oh no! See, we're cutting this out of the podcast.
Did they just lose one of the members of that band? You got shot and killed. Okay, so see, I'm not that out of touch. All right? I just saw he's a rapper, got shot and killed, right?
Yeah.
Is that in Atlanta or something like that?
Yeah.
I think it was.
Houston,
right.
They're from Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm sorry to. Oh, they're really. I got that part right. So I'm not that off the rails.
No, that's what I'm saying. I was giving you credit there.
You should have corrected
All
them.
right, I want to talk really quick. The University of Cincinnati plays basketball tonight. Ohio State plays basketball tonight. UC's playing at home against Cleveland State. But I want to get into this story about Louisville for a minute. And, Paul, you're the one that brought it up. The guy who took over for Chris Mack is a guy named Kenny Payne. He played at Louisville, played on their 1986 national championship team, a longtime assistant for John Calipari at Kentucky. He comes back to his alma mater. They opened their season last night, and how far has Louisville fallen? They lose last night to Bellarmine.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this is, in fairness, Louisville has lost a lot of players with everything that went down with Chris Mack. It's not the Louisville we're used to, but they still have some good players hanging around. Bellarmine, now fill in the blank here, Paul. They were a team that had a great year last year, right? And they're trying to become what? D1, where they can get in the tournament and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, so they are transitioning to Division I right now. They're in Division I. They play in the Atlantic Sun. They won their conference tournament last year, but because of their transition to D1, you're not allowed. It's some stupid NCAA rule that you're not allowed to play in the postseason for 5 years.
That is ridiculous.
I don't.
Another rule by the NCAA, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't understand the rule or the reason behind that rule. But, yeah, they won their conference tournament last year, so they got the Atlantic Sun's automatic bid into the NCAA tournament. They weren't allowed to play, so they end their season on a win, but they aren't allowed to continue it. But this is a team that if you don't know about Bellarmine, they're coached by a guy named Scotty Davenport. Bellarmine is in Louisville. It's right down the road from U of L. They actually play at Freedom Hall, which was the old home of Louisville, who now plays at the Yum Center. So these Bellarmine kids, they play an up-tempo game. Their ball movement is crazy. They just wear you down. They're cutting, their off-ball movement, their passing, the way they rotate the ball as quick as they do. They just want to wear you down, and they did. The whole game, they only won by 1, but they were up by 10 or 12 at one point throughout the second half. They were up by double digits for a lot of the second half. I watched almost the whole game. It was a dominant performance by Bellarmine, and when Louisville started to make a run toward the end of the game, I was starting to feel real bad that they might slip it away. But this right here, and we're going to show you the last play of the game. This right here is a heads-up play to end the game. We'll bring it on the screen. Bring it up, here, Casey.
Wheeler the rebound. The stick back won't go. Betts the rebound. He throws the ball down the floor with 3 seconds left. It goes out of bounds with a half second left.
That is a heads-up play.
So he is not a good free throw shooter, and he knew it. And Justin Betts is his name. And he throws the ball over his head down the court. Louisville inbounded the ball. They added like 0.3 of a second, and it was a half-court heave that went off the backboard. And Bellarmine won. And kudos to them. Scotty Davenport's a heck of a coach. He's been there forever. That's the first time in 13 tries that Bellarmine has beaten Louisville.
You know, for those that have not been down there, Louisville in many regards, and I know around here, you're supposed to say Louisville, but in many aspects, in a city that size, which has become a very decent-sized city, I think it's one of the top 50 largest cities in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. Smaller than Cincinnati, nonetheless. Louisville is like a pro team. And I mean that in football and basketball. There was a time there, of course, where they had Rick Pitino running the show. They had it going on, won a national championship. They had some great football teams at Louisville. And because they don't have a pro team, they have the Reds AAA minor league baseball team, the Louisville Bats. But when it comes to football and basketball, that is like a pro setting down there. A lot of people, a lot of money, incredible facilities. Football stadium is awesome. Basketball arena is one of the nicest venues there is in the country. It's big enough to be a pro arena. There's been talk about Andy Furman and some people putting together a group to bring professional basketball back to Louisville. They were in Louisville back in the old ABA days, for those of you old enough to remember. But I imagine they knew what they were getting into in Louisville, but I don't think, Paul, there is any way, shape, or form they thought it could start like this.
Yeah, this is bad. And the other reason that this is really bad is because they lost their exhibition to a D2 team, which you can't really read too much into exhibition losses because it's a situation where the coach is trying to get guys in, maybe use different rotations for a game that doesn't matter. But when you start to stack performances like this one after another, and Louisville showed no reason last night why they're going to be any kind of a factor this year. And if you look at the schedule that they play, I mean, obviously, playing in the ACC, they're going to play who they're going to play in the ACC, but they're also playing Arkansas. I mean, they're playing in the Maui Invitational, just like UC is, but they got Maryland. They have Miami, Florida, who's a very good team this year. Jim Larinaga has what he's done for that program over the last decade has been amazing. It's just obviously Kentucky in the rivalry, and Kentucky might be the best team in the country this year. Louisville has a long season ahead of them. Are they
under any kind of probation?
No. Nothing that should really affect the program going forward.
Because a lot of that stuff went down when Pitino was there.
Well, yeah, and that was what we talked about the other day from that independent review panel, that IARP that gave them their $5,000 punishment and some probation from a couple weeks ago. It's basically the assistant coaches have some deals with recruiting. It's nothing that down the line will really hold the Louisville program back. It's just for right now, they are in a really bad spot.
Okay. Xavier plays again, tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night.
Are they playing anybody anytime soon?
Indiana next Friday.
That's a big-time
game. Indiana next Friday.
At Indiana?
No, at Cintas.
Wow.
Big-time game.
At Indiana, I think, is ranked 12th in the country, something like that?
Yeah, picked to win the Big Ten. Yeah, big-time game. Big-time game. But, no, Xavier plays Montana tomorrow night. UC plays Cleveland State tonight. Yep. Cleveland State has a new coach this year. Dennis Gates, their old coach, left, and he took over Missouri. Cleveland State's not a very good team. This is another one for UC to get them ready for Maui.
And the refresh my memory here, the shootout this year is played when and where?
It will be at Cincinnati on December 10th.
I tell you, that's going to be an interesting game this year.
Yeah, it'll be a toss-up. In fact, right now, I mean, if you look at the look-ahead lines before all the lines kind of use the data from the year, I mean, UC right now is favored by 2.
No kidding.
So
that's basically
that's just on the analytics
that's a home thing.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. What the way that you read that is that it's a toss-up game this year, and I think most people so far would say that Xavier has a little bit of an edge just because of some of the guys that they brought back.
Yep.
But being at UC, that's everybody listening to this show knows what that game means to this city.
Absolutely. So. The player formerly known as Mouse Coop.
Oh, yeah.
Cintas is already sold out tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's alumni weekend this weekend, so it'll be
alumni weekend.
Yeah, well, they don't have a football team, so there's no homecoming.
Alumni weekend. Beers will be flowing down there at what's the name of that dump? The place you like so much. I'm not going to say that. I've never been there. I've never been. Don't even name it. Don't even worry about it. We're not going to say it because that was unfair to say. My wife got on me yesterday about the comments I made at the end of the show about gambling in California. And I just told her, I said, that's not getting political. Those are the facts. I mean, but Polly got all over me, and so, I better watch what I say. And Lord knows I probably should have thought about that a couple of years ago. So today we are going to basically with Ace Boogie, but then with Casey and Paul, we're going to break down what in essence is the midway point of this Bengals season, where they are in the bye week. We know their record. We know the way the season is played out. But we're going to talk about different areas of the team. And not necessarily, we can do it. We can grade them. We're not going to put anything up necessarily graphically. But we're going to do that. A couple of things came up in the NFL before we get to Ace Boogie here that caught my attention, maybe yours as well. This week, the Dallas Cowboys are playing the Green Bay Packers. And, of course, for a dozen years, Mike McCarthy was the head coach for the Green Bay Packers. He's now the head coach, as you know, for the Dallas Cowboys. And it's only natural when Aaron Rodgers is getting ready to face his longtime coach. And there were moments there, and he admitted it. Whether you like Aaron Rodgers or don't like him, you think he's a diva, all these kinds of things. I always have found him, and I've had a chance to talk with him many, many times in meetings getting ready for games. I've always found him to be a guy that has some depth to him. When you go into a room, and this is no knock on Drew Brees. I love who Drew Brees is, what he stands for, great player. But you were getting pretty much a robot just talking about the game and X's and O's. You weren't getting a lot of sort of insight on topics maybe outside of the game itself. With Rodgers, that was very different. You could ask him about different things, and he'd be willing to give his opinion. Sometimes people don't want to hear it. He went through the whole thing with the COVID vaccine last year and all that kind of thing. That's fine. But he became, I guess, quite emotional yesterday talking about Mike McCarthy, their ups and downs through the years. They won a Super Bowl together, and says as he gets older, like a lot of us, you look back on some of the relationships that you have in your life or your career, and he talked about there are a lot of days that he reflects back on that and misses Mike McCarthy. I don't think it was any shot on Matt LaFleur. Did you guys see the press conference, hear any of the press conference, any of that kind of thing?
I did not, no.
I thought it was really interesting. So check it out if you'd like to. I thought it was pretty good. The other thing that really caught my attention was this whole sort of, I don't know if anybody made it out to be some kind of a rift, but it certainly was something that started after Russell Wilson left Seattle. He was there forever. His head coach the whole time he was there was Pete Carroll. They won a Super Bowl together. So Pete Carroll was asked yesterday about Geno Smith, who's playing great, right? I mean, he would be in the MVP conversation for me. The way he's played and led that team so far this year, no one saw that coming. But Geno Smith apparently is wearing one of those wristbands. You see it in college all the time, more in college than you do the pros. But, making sure you've got the right play, the right formation, all those kinds of things on your wrist when you're making the call in the huddle. Pete Carroll was asked about that, and he says, well, there was some pushback on that over the last number of years. He doesn't say anything, doesn't name Russell Wilson. But the only guy he could be talking about was Russell Wilson. So naturally, the press then goes to Russell Wilson and asks him about those comments that were made. Casey, you have this soundbite?
I do.
Okay, here it is.
You don't like we come to find out you don't like the play sheet on the wristband?
Come to find out, what do you mean?
Well, there's, Pete Carroll said something about putting the play calls on the wristband.
I don't know exactly what he said, but I think, won a lot of games there without one on the wrist. And I didn't know winning or losing mattered if you wore a wristband or not. But I think that do whatever it takes to make sure that we're rolling and moving and everything else. A few times I've definitely worn a wristband depending on the game plan and what we have called and all that stuff. But yeah.
Now, what are your guys' thoughts on that? First of all, I'm going to state for the record, because a lot of people may disagree. I love Russell Wilson. I'm not saying he's what he used to be. I think he's surrounded by bad talent, or at least some parts that just haven't gelled together yet. But, I mean, why would you go out of your way if you're Pete Carroll? And even the smallest slight on the guy that was your quarterback for the last decade. Why would you do that? And maybe he doesn't look at it that way.
Yeah, I always like to think that maybe a good look about it. Maybe he just did it on accident and didn't realize it. But, man, that was not a good – that's such a minor thing. Who cares about a wristband? Honestly. Why was it even brought up to begin with? That's my question.
I'm sure that somebody in the media just thought that, this guy's wearing it. You haven't had anybody else wear it in the past. Maybe what's going on there or, I don't know. I didn't watch the entire press conference. Paul, any thoughts on that?
I don't really have much of a take on it, to be honest,
Well,
Tom.
you guys, the ham and eggers, have showed up in very
it's a wristband.
Good Lord.
My issue is Russell won you a Super Bowl. Any sort of slight at all is just not in good taste, in my opinion. And I get Pete Carroll is doing well now, but that doesn't mean we're still in the middle of the season. Geno Smith could just end up turning into a pumpkin by the time the season's over with.
It's a good reference. Cinderella.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's high level.
High level stuff.
See?
That is.
But
it is.
So my thing is, how about we just save the slights for if you're feeling like we're cheated out of having a Super Bowl winning quarterback, then maybe keep it behind closed doors, because Russell Wilson is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And I get that he's been struggling in Denver, but I couldn't imagine Marvin Lewis doing the same thing about Andy Dalton. Could you?
No chance. No chance.
So
None.
to me, it's Russell is at a higher level than that, and a whole different plane. I don't know. It's just a bad look on Pete Carroll's part.
Yeah, and again, it might be completely harmless, and Pete Carroll is he hadn't ripped guys that have left his organization in the past, and so I don't know. But just food for thought out there. All right, we're going to take a break, and we got our buddy. First time he's been on the program.
Yep.
Ace Boogie to talk about the Bengals. He knows his stuff. That's coming up next on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time. And if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
turn when you're in pain. Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
I was watching, there is a documentary about Nolan Ryan on Netflix, which is a spectacular piece. And I say that in all seriousness. I always thought, he was one of the great pitchers of all time. But after watching this thing, you just scratch your head and have a hard time coming to grips with how a guy can hold, or at one time held, 51 major league pitching records. They have a lot of quick cuts in that documentary of doing what Nolan did best, and that's striking people out. Lo and behold, what pops up? But Tracy Jones standing there, striking out and looking like a washerwoman in the process. He wanted to get out at batter's butt. He swung at a pitch that he could not have hit with an ironing board that was up and away, and then almost fell down, but couldn't wait to get back to that dugout. I had to rewind it to make sure it was him, and it was. So just, if you get a chance to remember, just run that by him a bit when you all have him on Thursday. Yeah.
Well, those are the words from Marty Brennaman yesterday, and so he had a few choice words for Tracy Jones, and we'll get to that at 11:30 today. But it's my pleasure. I had a chance to actually join Cincinnati, his very popular podcast with our buddy Zim Hude, and that is Ace Boogie. Ace, how are you, young man? Nice to see you. Nice to have you on the program.
Glad to be here, man. Thank you for having me, and also thanks for coming on to the Cincinnati podcast. We appreciate that.
Now, how often are you doing the podcast? Let's give that some pub here, because even though you guys have 18,000 times the number of followers we have, but for those that may not know, your show is on when, and where can people find it?
Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Cincinnati Podcast YouTube channel.
Now, like Zim Hude, you are not living in Cincinnati, but you follow the Bengals regularly. Where do you live, and being outside of town, and why do you follow the Bengals?
I actually grew up in Cincinnati majority of my life, but I moved to Florida for college. So now I currently live in Orlando, Florida. After getting my MBA and working, I ended up staying down here. So the Bengals thing for me started when I lived in Cincinnati for sure, and I just couldn't let it go at all.
Where'd you go to high school, if you don't mind me asking?
Wyoming High School. So
oh, man, home of the Cowboys. Home of the Cowboys. We give them a tail kicking regularly over at Marymount in just about everything except for football.
Not so sure about that, man.
You might be right on that. Boy, they got a big-time football team there this year. Are you following them in the state playoffs? They're undefeated. I don't think they've lost a regular season game in like 4 years.
Yeah, I actually have, because Coach Hancock, who's the coach now, I remember when he was kind of a positional coach when I was there. So I do keep up with them, and he's doing some great things with the program. I haven't checked their latest playoff game, but I knew that they were doing pretty good up until that point.
Yeah, they play this weekend, and they're undefeated. They got the great running back, C.J. Hester, over there.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
still royally chapped that kid's not going to Ohio University and going to another MAC school, but that's a different conversation. Ace, give me your overall thoughts and impressions, because no one follows the Bengals closer than you do. I mean, none of these big money, high-profile guests we have on here all the time. but nobody knows him better than you do. What are your thoughts about the Bengals' 5-4 season so far?
Well, obviously, you kind of have to feel like the Bengals lost some of the games that they probably should have won, right? But that was during a time where they were trying to figure out this cover two. Everybody was pretty much trying to take the explosive plays away, and Zach Taylor and the staff just really had to figure that out. And so I think they're in a spot now that's actually very similar to where they were last season, right? You talk about 5-4 going into the bye. However, when they come out of this, just like I said last year, it has to be a playoff type intensity with this team going forward, especially with some tough teams like the Bills, the Chiefs, those guys coming down the schedule. They're going to have to get in a space where they can do it. But I do feel confident that they can, because this is a team that we're in November and December. That's where they kind of made that run last season. I think that they could do the same.
You know, Zim gets all fired up, you know, when he's on the program and on your podcast, Cincinnati, about, everybody's scared to death of the Bengals. And I think he's right on that. I mean, that's the kind of team you would not want to play when you look at all of the weapons. But let's assume for a second, and look, I'm not privy to any inside information on how severe Jamar Chase's injury is, how long he's going to be out. They're not saying anything about it. They probably, quite frankly, don't know. But do you think, and I know they put up the big numbers against Carolina, but Carolina's awful. But do you think that this team is capable of putting together that kind of a run? Not to the Super Bowl necessarily, but I'm just saying a regular season run. You alluded to the schedule without Jamar Chase.
Well, obviously, Jamar Chase is a huge part of what they do, right? He's a fantastic player. He's elite. But I've always talked to people about Joe Burrow from 2020, right? He didn't have Jamar Chase. He was out there with A.J. Green, who wasn't the same A.J. Green that we were used to, a rookie T. Higgins, Auden Tate at some points. Joe Mixon went down at one point. I think that they still have enough to still compete and win in these games, because when you have that quarterback like Joe Burrow, he's going to make guys like Trent Taylor, Trenton Irwin look a little better than what they are, right? That's the whole point of having an elite quarterback, is because they can raise the level of the guys around you, versus a guy like Andy Dalton, who when you have elite talent around him and they go down, that offense takes a huge hit. So I think that they will miss Jamar Chase, but I do think that they can make a run with the players that they have. You talk about a Joe Mixon, you talk about T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, the ways that they are using those guys. They got to get Hayden Hurst more involved. But sure, I think with them getting a guy like DJ Reader back on defense, I think that they can still make a run towards the playoffs even without Jamar Chase. It may be tough when you go into those games against the Bills and Chiefs. Maybe those are games that you don't win. But outside of those ones, I feel like they can technically win any of these other games that they have left on the schedule without Jamar Chase.
You know, you look at the defense, and up until a couple of weeks ago, the defense had not allowed a second-half touchdown. That was up until the Cleveland game. And I look at the defense, and you mentioned Reader. I know the defense last year in the postseason, everybody talks about the offensive weapons, and rightfully so. But let's face it, when they got into the postseason last year, it was the defense that won most of those games, having to go on the road and all the interceptions against Tennessee, and having to go on the road and shut down Mahomes in the second half at Kansas City. I think the defense is much better, even though from where it was a year ago. You agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think a lot of people kind of forgot, early on in the season when we were in the same point, the defense kind of did the same thing. Like, the offense was really inconsistent to start last season. The defense held it together. Then when the offense really took fire, the defense wasn't where it needed to be. And then when the playoffs started, they were better. I think this one is better. I think that they're more comfortable within the system. I think guys like Von Bell are playing better. I think there are other guys that are stepping up on this team. You talk about Akeem Davis-Gaither, who wasn't there for the run last season. Logan Wilson got hurt. During that stretch, came back and played. He looks like he hasn't missed a beat since that playoff run in the Super Bowl. Jermaine Pratt doesn't get talked about enough.
You're right.
Eli Apple, surprisingly, has played very consistent as well. I mean, this defense, I think they're clicking on all cylinders. The only thing that I'd like to see, though, from this defense is more pressure from the pass rushing standpoint, right? Like, one of the things that we were able to get last year was the interior pressure from a guy like Larry Ogunjobi. They don't have that anymore. B.J. Hill's doing a decent job, but they're going to need other guys to step up that are not named Trey Hendrickson and not named Sam Hubbard to try to deliver some more to this pass rush. And I think guys like Joseph Osai, I think those guys can definitely do it. But, yeah, I would say that the defense is playing better than they were last year, even through that playoff run.
So if there are negatives or concerns for you, you just pointed out the pass rush. And I've said that from day one. I was a proponent, and I don't know the salary cap structure and where the Bengals are all the way through. I love the idea, and the Ravens beat them to it. I love the idea of going out and signing a Jason Pierre-Paul, that kind of a guy where because of the way their defensive line sets up, you don't have to put him out there for half the plays, if even that, and just tell him go get the quarterback. Well, the Ravens made that move. The Bengals did not. So outside of that pass rush thing, what concerns you most about this team moving forward?
Well, I might take a little heat for this, and, I like to have guys prove me wrong. I'm not trying to get down on certain players or anything like that. But when I really look at the last two games, a guy that I need more from, the rookie Cam Taylor-Britt. Obviously, he's a rookie. He's stepping into a new role as a corner. I'm a former corner myself. I played for the Wyoming Cowboys. That's the hardest position in football, right? But it seems like in the Cleveland game, they kind of picked on him. He also gave up a touchdown in the last game. I just don't want him to be the guy that teams start to target moving forward. So hopefully he gets comfortable. That's a possible weakness there, right? That's someone that can get picked on. We talked about the pass rush. For me, if DJ Reader is back, I don't see the run defense being an issue. So for me, I'd probably say the liability in the secondary that could be Cam Taylor-Britt or Eli Apple if he ends up returning to some of those issues that he had before. I would probably say that those are the weaknesses outside of pass rush.
I think it's unfair at times. You talk about how hard. There's no doubt about it. You are spot on. Cornerback is by far the most difficult position to play in the National Football League, maybe outside of being a great quarterback. But you got to have a short memory. You're going up against the best athletes in the world, and that's what the wide receiver position has become. You are playing the best athletes in American sports. Let's put it that way. I think it's a little unfair to ask guys to be something that they're not, and you just pointed out. Britt came out of college as a safety. Generally, safeties, generally speaking, are bigger, stronger, more rugged kind of guys that maybe don't have quite the athleticism as some of the cornerbacks have. So I just wonder, now with the Awuzie out, are you asking a young man in his rookie year to do something that he's never done before, or at least regularly done before?
Yeah, I agree. I think it is something. And when they took him, at first I was like, the Bengals just take another safety? Like, I get that he's played some nickel, he's played some corner for sure, but he does seem like a guy that is kind of having to learn a lot of things at once and getting thrown into the fire. So I would probably say, is he going to be a guy like Sauce Gardner? No. We obviously know that, right? But hopefully they can mold his tackling ability into a guy that can play corner and can do some things especially for them. And I think one of the things, too, is if they do play some zone, hopefully he can get into a position where that will help him out a lot because he'll be responsible for a particular area instead of playing man-to-man. And if he does play man-to-man, Lou's going to have to do some things like having a safety over the top to help him in coverage.
That's a great point. I mean, our man here, the Ham and Eggers, by the way, Ace Boogie, Casey McAllister, and Paul Fritchner. We listened to you, and I asked Casey earlier. I said, "Tell me about my man Ace Boogie," and he said, "This guy, you've been following him forever." Am I right on that, Casey?
Yeah, probably since the very beginning. Honestly, I can remember the days where you were showing the trash can to describe Andy Dalton's play on the field. Those were some great times, honestly. I love that clip. But, yeah, I mean, you know your stuff. And I think you're hitting the head on the nail here.
That would be the nail on the head.
Nail on the head. Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head here.
You ought to know that if you're doing all this work in your new house.
That's true. I got a lot of work to do in that house, too. It's going to be a while. But, yeah, I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt, to me, kind of disappointed me the last couple games. I think he is kind of just being thrown into the fire, and I have a feeling that he wasn't naturally supposed to be cornerback 2. He was supposed to be
Jesse Bates replacement, right?
Well, that
or Dax Hill, or right.
That or Trey. I can't remember his last name.
Flowers.
Trey Flowers.
Be Trey Flowers' replacement. Cover the tight ends. Be that secondary guy and that specialty guy, because he's got the same profile. So I don't know. Maybe that's what they had in mind. But now that Trey Flowers is hurt, Awuzie being out for the year, he's just gonna have to play that position and learn really quickly.
You got to coach him up. And, I mean, you can't have any fault whatsoever. And we've picked apart this coaching staff from time to time, especially the play calling. But you cannot pick apart the job that Lou Anarumo has done as defensive coordinator here since they've given him some players to work with. And the same can be said of Zach Taylor. I mean, his first couple of years, they had nothing, and they were getting their brains beat in every game. One area we've not talked about, Ace Boogie, is the offensive line. Now, you break this stuff down and watch these guys. Who's having a good year on that offensive line in your estimation?
I would probably point to the interior. I mean, you talk about Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, you talk about Volson. Those guys are definitely finding their way. And one of the things that I felt like I was in the minority on this, but I wanted to see better run blocking. Like, they've done a great job in the interior of pass blocking, but I just remember games where I would just see Joe Mixon run up to the line, and it was like he was running into a brick wall. We saw that change last game. Guys are pulling, guys are doing things. So I would probably say the best part of the offensive line this season is definitely the interior with those guards, with those centers. They're definitely getting their money's worth, I think, from those guys. And now, not only the passing game, now it appears they may be getting that from the run game, which is really what those guys are really good at when you look at their profiles and where they came from.
I argued with your buddy. Zim Hude. I told him, I said, you're not going to win in the NFL if you can't run the ball, especially if you're playing in bad weather. And we know starting this weekend, I mean, you're down there in Florida, so you got it great every day. But, here we've had the most incredible fall weather I can ever remember. But apparently today is the end of that. We got sunny and 70, and starting on Saturday, the highs are in the 40s every single day for the foreseeable future, with lows at night in the 20s. So, you got to be able to run the ball when you're playing in these cold weather towns. And they showed at least the ability, and I'm agreeing with you, that's what these guys really is the strength of this offensive line. Not that they can't pass block. They've gotten better as the season's gone on, by and large. But this is a run-heavy group as far as moving people off the line of scrimmage. So with that in mind, I know they did it one game against Carolina. Do you think they try to become a more – you hear the word all the time. You get tired of hearing it. A more balanced team on offense. Do you think that happens, or do you think Zach Taylor falls back on what he did 2 weeks ago against Cleveland, where the first 21 plays of the game on offense, 17 of the 21 are throwing the ball?
With Zach, it's always tough, right? Like, a lot of people forget when Zach first came to Cincinnati, he didn't like to run the ball. A lot of people forgot that, right? And then a lot of people were saying, hey, this is the AFC North. You have to run the ball. I think losing Jamar Chase, and I kind of said this when it happened, it almost causes you to have to use Joe Mixon more and have to run more of a balanced attack. And I like what they did when it comes to Brian Callahan and Zach Taylor, like them now running out of 12-man fronts with 2 tight ends. Like, that is something that they should have done. I used to be really critical on the type of run plays and the formations that they would line up in, because they weren't really putting Joe Mixon in positions for success. Now with what they're showing now, I definitely think that running the ball is going to be a key. You even look at the Steelers game, right? What was one of the reasons that we killed the Steelers last year? Joe Mixon. I talked to some of my guys that cover Pittsburgh, and coming into week 1, they were worried about Joe Mixon. So I definitely think having that balanced attack is going to help open things up. They've done things like RPOs, and if you have that working, then it's just going to make the play action work a lot smoother. And you can use the run to set up the pass. So I do think Zach kind of learned his lesson. And I think it's going to vary by game to game, right? Depending on what the defense's weakness is. But sure, I do think that they can run a more balanced attack moving forward.
Where did the nickname Ace Boogie come from? I love, that's one of my, it might be my single favorite nickname on the planet, Ace Boogie.
For sure. Well, it originated from my favorite movie. My favorite movie is Paid in Full. One of the main characters in there, his name is Ace Boogie. When I was starting New Stripe City, one of the founding purposes of that, or the creative ideas that I pulled from, was actually New Jack City. So instead of calling it New Jack City, I called it New Stripe City. And then I went with my favorite character from Paid in Full, Ace Boogie. So that is where the name originated from.
And you said earlier, an MBA, which automatically makes you far superior on an intelligence level than anybody who sits in this studio on a daily basis. That I can tell you on a regular. You got an MBA, Paul?
I do not.
You got an MBA, Case?
No.
I know the dunce doesn't over there either. MBA? That's a big leaguer, Ace Boogie. What the hell are you doing on this show?
I appreciate it, man. It's something I went to FAMU for business school. It's something that I still do in my professional life, so I still use that. I actually work in tech as a business report developer, so it actually helps me in both of those angles. So I'm able to use the technology side and the Bengals, well, not the Bengals, the business side. But one of the things I've always been interested in, and you kind of talked about it on the Cincinnati podcast, has been analytics and stuff like that. I like looking at things from that view. And so it just helps me not only take care of my business professionally, but it just also kind of gives me a little insight into why things happen the way that they do. But sports has always been a passion of mine. So I love talking sports, whether I'm at work, talking business or talking sports, that's where you'll find me.
Now, the shirt you have on there, that's the stuff that you and Zim are selling, right? Migos, stuff like that going on, right? It's a big league T-shirt.
Yes. Zim has his T-shirts as well, and then I have mine, which is the Migos. This thing came about when the Migos actually released an album last year. Unfortunately, they had a member pass away.
Yep.
But they had an album that was coming out, and everyone was trying to figure out what nickname to call this trio of receivers. And at the time, I had not really done any graphic design or anything like that. And I saw the Migos' new album, and the album cover was like their three phrases molded together. And I was just like, they're the Migos, like three receivers, three rappers, let's put it together. And I reached out to a couple of people, right? And they were kind of dragging their feet on doing it. So I just said, you know what? Had to grab the Thanos gauntlet. I'll just do it myself. And so I put the shirt out, I made the design, and I didn't think anything of it. Like, it didn't really take off super fast. And so I ended up sending the shirts to Joe Burrow and every one of the Migos. So T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd. A lot of people don't realize the first person that actually posted it, he didn't wear it, but he posted it, was Jamar Chase.
Really?
And then after that, I heard nothing. So I was like, well, maybe they're mad that I used their faces. I don't know what's going on. And then when the Bengals played the Ravens and all three receivers had big games, my phone just started blowing up randomly at night. Tyler Boyd apparently had worn the shirt that night, posted on his story, was like showing, gloating. Actually, this exact shirt, because I sent him a black one. I believe I sent Jamar Chase an orange one. And I sent Joe a white one. And I believe I sent T. Higgins a white one. And so that got a lot of traction. And then I happened to be out with my wife for her birthday, celebrating at Disney World, watching the Chiefs-Bengals game. And as we're on the float kind of going over into Disney World, my phone starts blowing up again. And then Zim calls me. Zim's calling me. And so at first I'm like, I'm with my wife. You know how that is. I'm not going to answer. Then she's just like, babe, pick it up. So I pick it up and he's like, bro, do you see, look at Twitter. Joe's wearing your shirt. Joe decides to wear it. So that was just an amazing feeling. And I appreciated it. It sent a message, I think. And that's one thing that I admire about Joe and I appreciate about Joe is there's always a message before he goes into games.
Casey?
Yeah. You know what's funny about that story, Ace, is I actually went to Florida to Disney the exact same time wearing that shirt, that white Migos shirt. And I'm on the plane, you know, the game is happening on the plane, and I'm just like sitting there just depressed because at the time they were down like 21-7.
Is this a playoff game or the regular season?
No, this is the regular season game.
Regular season.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh gosh, this is not great. And then I get off the plane and they won, and I'm looking on Twitter. I'm like, yes, the Migos, and I'm like just smacking my shirt and whatnot. And I saw that he's wearing the same white Migos shirt. I'm like, wow, this is just awesome, man. Like, great for you, great for the community. It was just an awesome time.
It's cool.
Yeah, especially because we beat the Chiefs the way that we did. It was just like,
oh yeah,
it was just something crazy. I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's good stuff.
Definitely.
Well, Ace, we appreciate your time today, my man, and we'd love to have you back sometime if you'd be willing. Always love to have you back. You obviously know the Bengals inside and out, as well as anybody that we've had on this program. And we appreciate your insights and your time today. So have a great rest of your day down there in sunny Florida. Although, you know, I wonder, you're well off the coast in Orlando, but any concern down there with the hurricane coming in and some of the after effects in your area?
We did get hit a little bit this morning around probably about 3 o'clock. It's still some rain a little bit outside, but when I went out, it was just a lot of branches and debris. So thankfully, nothing major, but definitely prayers for those that may have been hit a little harder. But yeah, so far we are good. So hopefully it stays that way. Still have power, still have everything. So we will definitely be weathering the storm. Hopefully it'll get back to those sunny days next week. But appreciate you guys for having me for sure.
All right. Take care of yourself, Ace. We'll see you soon.
Yes, sir. Houday.
Houday indeed. Ace Boogie. Love having Ace Boogie on the program. We stepped it up a notch by having him on.
Yeah, an NBA. He is not a ham and egger, that's for sure.
Definitely not. His buddy Zim, I'm not so sure. Although I got to tell you, you know, I mean, a lot of people wonder, and I didn't bring this up with Ace. I just, you know, he alluded in the first comment he made about getting an MBA. He went to Wyoming High School, went to Florida Atlantic, right?
Florida A&M.
Florida A&M, forgive me, for college, and he got his MBA. So, I came back to it. I wasn't asking him what he does in his real life, if you will, and nor have I asked Zim Houday. But, I mean, clearly, Zim's got something else going on, and I'm not going to get into it with him sometime. If that's his business, that's his business. But he seems like he's on his game. He lives in this beautiful area outside of D.C., I mean, these guys aren't clowns.
No.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think, and look, I was as guilty as anybody. I will say this up front and honestly. When I was doing Reds games, you know, there's that whole community, just like there is for the Bengals. There's that whole community of guys that are following this team on a regular basis. Many of them did not like me because I did not get into the whole analytics thing. And they were very critical of me not talking about it and bringing it up and all that kind of thing. And I'm not going to say I look down my nose because I've never looked down my nose at anybody in my whole life. Walk down the street and compassion and feel for people who are going through tough times every single day, whether they got $1 billion or they got nothing. But I did not put a lot of stock in what they thought about. You know what? In hindsight, that's my bad, because I think a lot of these people really follow the team and they know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's for some people, it's their livelihood and how they feel for the rest of the week, these games. I know that sounds really crazy, but that is fanatic. They are the ultra fans. And they decided, like Ace and Zim, that there wasn't much of a voice for the common folk of Bengals fans.
Right.
There was a lot of professional voice in the Bengals media team, but we, the fans, felt a different way, and they're a great outlet and a great voice for that. I think it's awesome, honestly.
I think, Thom, to your point, the internet and social media and everything else has given so many more people, and honestly so many smart people, an opportunity to have an outlet to talk about the team and to give a different perspective than you might have heard 30, 40, 50 years ago when you're watching your team or you're listening to your team on the radio or you're reading your local sports columnist. And that sports columnist is the voice of the city, and that's really where everybody gets their takes from. But now with blogs and podcasts and everything else, there's this opportunity for people that are very smart and very educated sports fans to be able to share their opinions and give people a different perspective that you weren't going to get before. And you listen to guys like this. There's so many people for the Reds that do a good job with that. Nick Kirby is one that comes to mind.
Yep, very sharp guy.
Guys that really do a good job covering any team, really, and being able to do that and share their opinions and give people a different way to look at the game and enjoy the game it's a good thing. There's competition in the market for all of these things, and the Cincinnati podcast is right up there with a lot of these things.
Yeah, and I would argue too. I mean, just look at us as a chatterbox as a whole. I mean, it's based off the same principle. We're not well, you are an ex-professional, but none of us here are.
Did you just say ex-professional?
Well,
is that what you just said?
Yeah. I mean, you are a professional, but
no, you said ex. No. You didn't say you are a professional. You said you are an ex-professional. Do you know what being an ex-producer means? Go ahead. Finish
Am I about to find out?
I know what you meant. I had to take that shot. Right, Paul? I had to take that shot. Ex-professional.
But, we're
I mean, it is what it is. You drive up here to Hamilton every day. It's taking me 40 minutes to get here. I am grateful for the opportunity to be here. I was so excited about these young men I was working around, building their resumes, building their careers, Thought we had a good working relationship here. But apparently, these guys are coming into work every day and they're thinking, well, hell, I'm working with an ex-professional. It's amateur hour around here.
No.
Paul, is that what he said?
I can't breathe.
Is that what he just said?
Casey.
Casey, please.
It's a good thing.
Shit, it's amateur hour around here. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, our Chatterbox as a brand is based off of a bunch of guys.
Casey, just stop while you're ahead. Stop while you're ahead, Casey. And I'm not even.
I mean, maybe you're not professional anymore. You're gone from the quote unquote mainstream media, the legacy media, whatever the terms are. So maybe you're out too, ex-professional.
I know you and
That's our new term around here from now on.
I don't know if this mic is on or not, Casey.
Yeah, I just turned it on.
I'm not a professional, so I wouldn't know if it's on or not. Yeah, Casey's just throwing. We want to talk about anything else, Casey? We got on here. Paul's sitting here. Paul's still a professional though, right? Because he does stuff with Xavier.
Let me tell you what has happened to the chat room since that comment was made. Purchasing, slap him, Thom. Thomas says, yikes. Sir Boy Wonder, Thom, fire him. How dare you?
Ex-professionals.
Boom shakalaka. Uh-oh. And R. Kilmar. Maybe I'm not pronouncing that right. You've been here before, so I got to figure out how. Write me on this chat room, please, and how to pronounce that so I know from now on. Says, open mouth, insert foot.
We're clipping that.
I like to dig graves, I'll tell you.
Your own?
Sometimes.
Some people get paid to dig graves for other people. There are a lot of people that get paid to dig graves for themselves.
No.
Believe me, I've done that in my life. So
Casey just kept talking. That was the issue. He just kept going. There wasn't like a stop of the sentence.
No, that's okay. Paul, you can get your face out of your hand out of there. I mean, it is what it is. Casey said what he said, and so
Congrats on being the only professional in here, Paul.
Yeah. Hey.
We're just ex-professionals.
So would Tracy Jones be an ex-professional too, or is he still a professional?
I think we're just leaving. This is like Casey's stink list. We're just gonna have to leave Casey up to his own devices. He can figure it out. You just figure out where everybody's professional standing is in the world.
Okay. Yeah. I'll make a list out of the people in the office.
I believe the phrasing he started to go with was Chatterbox Sports is built off, and then Paul stopped him of the sentence of.
Is his mic on?
His mic is on.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Oh, you couldn't hear me?
Yeah.
No, I mean I can, but go ahead.
No, I was saying his one sentence was Chatterbox is built off, and then Paul stopped him. He's like, nope.
You know, it is what it is.
I'm gonna go back to work as a professional.
Sir Boy Wonder says Casey owes Thom some Miller beers. Little High Life, the champagne of beers.
We're going to have to think of an appropriate punishment for you, Casey. We'll think of something. Thom and I will come up with something.
No. You know, I'm not about the punishment. I mean, a little ribbing, giving him a hard time, but no. We are a
no pie to the face
forgiving show here. That's what we are. We are all about forgiveness. There are a lot of the people out there, they can't spell that word. They don't want to know that word. They don't practice that word, and not one of us is perfect in that regard. But this show is all about forgiveness. So I tell you what, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. And while we're in our break, I would ask each and every one of you to consider the following. Ask yourself, have I been forgiven for some of the mistakes that I've made in my life? Ask yourself that question. And then ask yourself if you can extend that same forgiveness to Casey McAllister. Ask yourself that question. Maybe you find it amusing he called me an ex-professional. We're back in a moment.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Swinney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Swinney, the original used car superstore.
That was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. You guys really like to hit me here, don't you? Talk about the past. I don't like to talk about.
Why would the Ham and Eggers do that to Tracy Jones?
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, here's some memories for you.
There they are, Tracer.
There they are.
Oh,
look at that shot on the left. That's a knock, no doubt. That's a knock.
That's a ground ball to shortstop. Make a right turn back to the dugout. I rolled over on that pitch. I remember.
For the audience, like, it's not exactly a set in stone. Like, this is what they're going to be the whole year. Teams move up and down based off of how they perform. Right?
Oh, if there's one thing we know about the stink list, it is that it is a fluid situation.
It is a fluid situation.
Very reactionary.
And if
next time
who
we
is that
have
Trace
you
guy?
on, what?
Who is that Trace guy? He's like a legend. We're scared of this guy on Twitter.
Trace
Have you heard
Fowler.
about him?
Our boss?
He's the boss around here, Zim.
Hey, this guy has come into our Twitter community and scared the living daylights out of everybody that's in there. He comes in there and talks about these bets, and everybody just shuts up. Nobody talks, and they listen. He scared us, and he single-handedly lost the Browns game for us. He told us that we were going to lose the Browns game by a lot of points, and everybody got scared, and the energy was different. I don't want this guy coming back and talking. Trace is going to come back and start talking about, the Bengals going to lose, and everybody's just like, even me. I was like, who is this guy? And then he just leaves like the Grim Reaper. And then we were just sitting there, we were just talking about chili after that. Nobody even wanted to talk about football. This guy Trace is a demon. I don't know who this guy is. He's get him away from me. I don't know who he is. He was like, hey, Zim, it is me, Trace. And he came out of nowhere. And I was like, what? Who is it? 20 minutes just assassinated everybody's heart and their soul. Took it out their chest.
All right. What in the hell was that at the bottom of that screen?
It was supposed to say.
I mean, is that some like
recorded.
website that it's like a subliminal thing that we should be getting on?
No. So all the other ones say previously recorded with whoever the speaker was.
Right.
And apparently during the rendering, the text got all screwed up with Zim's clip. So I'm going to have to fix that.
You think?
Yeah.
You know, I got to give it up. I mean, there are a lot of very clever people that are in our chat room. Lots of stuff going out. The player formerly known as Mouse Cop says he should have been fired since the stink list. Boom shakalaka. Casey's buying lunch. It is. It's Kilmar. So thank you very much. I'm glad I got that right. So some suggestions. Maybe Casey should dress up as punishment, dress up like Thom for a day. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Boom shakalaka says, Casey, own it, learn from it, move on. We've all been there. I love this one. Purchasing GSS says this could be a T-shirt. Chatterbox Sports X Professional. I love this stuff. This is great stuff. CJ says, Thom, you're a former gravedigger. I am, for sure. There's no doubt about it. How can somebody take a shot at Ohio University basketball? I mean, that's ridiculous. Anonymous says, I should have cut Casey's hair. Okay. All right. So you had that moment. Our boss is here for a second, Trace Fowler. I mean, Trace, do you have any reaction to actually bringing on board an ex-professional? Or are you just surrounded by ex-professionals? Here at Chatterbox Sports is our CEO.
Casey is a man of many talents. Maybe a wordsmith isn't one of them. Now that said, I'm driving back. I just turn on the show, right? I'm driving back from getting a haircut. I just turn on the show, and literally the first sentence that I am exposed to is Casey just tearing us all down. I mean, he's just ripping this company to shreds, and I'm just like, just stop, Casey. And he just kept trying to plow through the hole when there just wasn't a hole there, you know? And the only thing I have to say about this whole thing is that you were getting ready to get into something that I was sincerely interested in what you're about to say until Casey completely threw it off the rails.
Which is what? I can't even remember.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to come back in here.
Okay.
I need to get this show back on track.
Thank you very much. It needs all the help it can get.
So you were talking about how when you obviously were in the booth, and that's how Casey got into this whole professional, ex-professional, whatever that BS was.
That would be X.
Yeah.
Yes.
To be clear, okay, I think it's safe to say you are.
I don't care. I can live with being. Matter of
professional.
fact, I'm very comfortable in that skin and that nickname. I'm going to walk around and
How
get
about
the
this?
Headlines right out here can make us up some great hoodies, right?
Yeah.
Ex-professionals. But let's go back
I don't want to talk for Casey, but he was obviously trying to get at the idea that that there's an authenticity to the concept of the internet to where you can be whoever you'd like to be. There isn't this box that you have to fit in. And obviously that's where Chatterbox has kind of grown into this mold of trying to become an authentic place where you can consume content, and we try to get, and again, as many professionals as we can at this company to do a good job of that. And in trying to eliminate the notion that just because you worked at a legacy media company, you are quote unquote better than the guy that sits in an office all day.
Right.
You were getting to the point of, at the time when you obviously were doing your play-by-play, you had looked at these guys as what? Walk me through what your concept was of these guys that maybe you said that you didn't look. You said you were going down the path of you don't look down upon them.
Never.
But you may have viewed them how, and kind of where has that shifted?
Well, my whole thing with most of them at the time was, they're going on Twitter, which I was not on, but Chris Welsh was on, and so I could read some of the stuff off of his computer during the game of some of these guys who were analytic folks, for lack of a better term, who were livid with me about not getting into analytics, okay? And, hindsight, should I have probably started looking a little bit more into the analytics? I had started to just get maybe at the first or second level of it so people could understand it. But they would go through the roof and start sending out just some of the nastiest tweets, all that kind of thing. When I said on the air, and this is a fact, whether people like it or not, this is a fact, okay? There's a research company that Fox Sports, the network level, pays because at the time, Fox Sports owned all of those regional sports networks. I think they had the rights to like 23 of the 30 teams, something like that, 20 of the 30. And so they would do this independent research on what fans like, don't like, what they want to hear about, what they don't want to hear about, what makes them tune in, what really makes them tune out. And they had a list of 30 things where in all of these study groups, okay, and this was from New York City because Fox is part owner of the Yes Network. I think 51 or 49%, one or the other. It's flip-flopped in recent years. All the way to Los Angeles when the Dodgers were on Fox Sports West and all points in between, including Cincinnati, St. Louis, Atlanta, right on down the road. Of the most important things for fans that they wanted to hear about, not 1 year in the 5 years when this would be presented to the Fox Sports producers and announcers and all that kind of thing, not one time in the 5 years did analytics rate higher than 27th. Not one time of 30 topics. Now, does that mean it's not important? No. It doesn't mean it's not important. But our job as broadcasters is to make the viewing experience the best it can possibly be for people. And if this is in the bottom 3 of things they don't want to hear about, then why would you talk about it?
I think the only argument back to that would have been that things move rapidly to a certain extent, and analytics were at least somewhat part of the conversation of why people were making decisions.
Yep.
So then, therefore, you could argue that that's probably a part of the broadcast in regards to why they're making those decisions.
Yep.
And at least having a 30,000 feet view above of not getting into the weeds of the analytics, but at least explaining to the person that might not understand analytics why at least they're making that decision.
That's fair.
And that would be the only, I guess my only thing to you would be that when you were doing the games on a day-to-day basis, you try to take your fandom out of it. But how much of when people would say, oh, Tom's too negative or whatever the cases may be of the times when you were doing that, how much of that in your mind was because of the product that you had been around for so long had just wore you down, truthfully, of just being like, I've seen bad baseball for extended periods of time? Because the opposite, I will be honest, there were times where it felt like you were obviously pessimistic on the whole concept of the team, but some of your calls when they were good were some of the best calls that you could argue that the Reds history has had. And one of them that comes to mind is when Brandon Phillips hit the home run against St. Louis right out of the All-Star break. I don't know if you remember that or not. Do you remember that call?
No, but thank you.
But my point to you would be, for the person that would say, you know, and let's be honest, we're not going to get into the weeds of like who's there now and none of that. I'm not trying to say that. But we're not trying to compare and contrast people. But what I am saying, like, there's this notion that sometimes it's too optimistic when, you know, clearly things aren't going well. And maybe sometimes it was too pessimistic. Do you feel like your fandom of the Reds made an impact on how you called games? If you were calling I don't know, when you were with the Diamondbacks.
Well, I know what you're getting at here, and I have heard, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 10,000 times, and I agree with this statement. I always have. People would say, Thom, you are a better announcer when you were doing the Fox Saturday game of the week when the Giants were playing the Cardinals. Better baseball announcer when you did that game than when you were doing 3 days later your 100th Cincinnati Reds game of that season. Better football announcer than baseball announcer with the Reds. I agree with that statement because it is impossible. And Joe Buck and I have talked about this I don't know how many times. And Kenny Albert, for that matter, too, because he doesn't do local baseball, but he does local hockey and then called Hockey for Fox and that kind of thing. It is impossible to take, and I don't care what anybody says, and you do the best you can. It is impossible to take the fandom side out of it. And I tried for years. I'd say to myself, okay, this year I am going to be a guy who's taken the fandom part out, which when your team's getting your butt kicked means you're taking the pessimism out. Okay? But, one, it will always trickle back in. Two, what you get is, okay, now from that same fan base, not necessarily the analytics fan base, but from that same fan base of what you're talking about. Okay. What you then get is, boy, why aren't you more pro-Reds? So if you're going to go into it and say, okay, I'm going to try to remove myself from all of this, you're going to try to be a lot more objective, and it means you're staying a lot more down the middle than being the cheerleader, which some people want, right? They don't want you to say anything bad about anybody, right? And so believe me, it's a blessing to be in there, and it was great to be in there and all those kinds of things. But there are those challenges, if that answers your question. Does that answer your question?
So basically, at the end of the day, you felt like, obviously, I guess the question was, do you think that that's just the nature of your fandom is pessimism at times? Or is it just because the product was, I don't want to kill him, but the product was bad for an extended.
The product was bad.
So my point to you would be,
but it wasn't there all the years that I was doing the Reds
not all the years.
Because they had some good years.
Do you think that the perception of you as being, quote unquote, pessimistic or optimistic, obviously I think most people would say there was pessimism there, but do you think that if the Reds were winning 95 games a year, 100 games a year, that you personally would have, in a way, broadcast a lot differently because of just the way you felt about the team? Because you were, at the end of the day, as you said, the question I think at the end of the day was, do you think your fandom trickled into the broadcast? And the answer was somewhat yes.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And I mean, look, but the interesting thing is that fans have every right in the world to be pessimistic about their team when they're getting their tails kicked, not only day after day, but year after year. Right? But they don't want to hear that from a guy sitting in the booth. And I will give all the credit in the world to the guys that are in there now. They're watching a terrible product. Terrible. Second time in franchise history they lose 100 games, right? But they are a very upbeat group. You know what I mean? My dad, a lot of people would label him the same way as being pessimistic, right? When they're not playing good. So, and I used to argue about this all the time with Phil Castellini, and you're really not arguing with somebody when he's your boss. He certainly thought that I was too hard on the team and would share that with me. I would go back and make the points of, wait a minute, little pessimistic there, granted. I'll give you that. But could have killed him and didn't do it, So, I mean, I just think that, there was a lot of fan there because I was born and raised and grew up in this town and grew up rooting for the Reds and grew up immediately, once we moved to Cincinnati, watching great teams and great players and all those kinds of things. So when they're not, the fan in you kind of comes out a little bit.
That's fair. That was the only question I genuinely had. And then
Yeah.
the last thing would be, has your perception when you were talking about Ace Boogie and Zim and those guys, to finish my point, and I'm going to get out of here and let you continue on with the show. What has changed? Because obviously you feel like you were getting to the point where you felt like something's changed with you personally, to where maybe those guys, obviously you've seen a different light with those types of characters versus maybe the past, right?
Well, but I think that like anything else, there are guys out there like Ace Boogie and Zim Hude who I put a lot of stock in what they have to say, and they're calm and they're rational about it. They might get fired up and all that kind of thing, but they're not what I call the hater crowd out there, okay? There's a lot of hater crowd out there.
Right.
And a lot of those guys that are doing that, they're a hater crowd. They really are. You can be pessimistic, but then you can be a hater, where you're crossing the line, stuff becomes personal, all that kind of thing. And I'm getting something caught in my throat. We got to take a break.
Not to give you a perfect segue, but here's the thing. Nobody knows haters more than Tracy Jones.
All right, we're back in a moment.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Swinney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Swinney, the original used car superstore.
All right, welcome back to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We call it the best 30 minutes in television, and it comes your way twice a week at 11:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tracy Jones found his razor, apparently, since the last time we saw him. Now, Tracer, you are down there in Florida, and you sent me some video. Paul, do we have that Case, do we have that video?
I'm going to pull it up here in a second.
We're going to pull it up in a minute. Things getting a little hairy down there, right?
Got really tough last night, Tom. It was storming. That's all Nicole, right? Category 1. It hit the East Coast, then traveled to the West Coast. And I got to tell you, I was scared. The winds were up to 75 miles an hour. I didn't sleep at all. I was up all night. Danae was a little nervous. The dog was going crazy. When Tucker gets nervous, he barks, gives out this, and then licks his nudicles. I don't know if that relaxes him or what the deal is, but he was even nervous. And right now I'm looking outside, and the water's got to be 15 feet away from actually being toward the condo. So needless to say, this is a big deal. And my wife just called me a pansy ass, if you can believe that. And I'm listen, a lot of stuff I joke around and play it off. I think this is a big deal because I'm worried about the storm surge.
Well, it is a big deal. And everybody who went through the hurricane a couple of weeks ago, I mean, there's people,
right?
Their lives have been ruined. I mean, the easiest thing in the world for a lot of people to say, well, oh, that big money crowd, wherever it might be, up and down the coast from Tampa to Sarasota all the way down to Naples and all that kind of thing. But most of the people whose places were devastated. I mean, they're not the big money crowd. They're regular folks like the Ham and Eggers and me, not necessarily you, but like these guys. And and they got to find a way to put life back together. And that's not easy to do. I mean, is there damage down there even where you are?
Oh, there's a ton of, and I apologize because I always tell you guys I'm all about the visual, and I should have taken pictures of all the debris on the side of the road. And I'm at Minnesota Key. If you don't believe me, Google Minnesota Key, and it's near Inglewood and down in Florida, and just the devastation. And the Ham and Eggers would know this because a lot of trailer parks around this area, and they were just absolutely destroyed. So it's just sad for those people. And I think this is a serious deal. And I don't know when you say, I got to pick up and go.
Yeah.
Danae seems to be all right with this. I mean, I go back to 1992 with Hurricane Andrew when I was living down in Juno Beach. And I remember, my first wife saying, we got to get out of here. And we were a little late, got in the car, grabbed your valuables. I grabbed my baseball cards, and I mean, we went straight up 75 and finally found a place to stay. This is a true story, not about the baseball cards, but finally found a place to stay in Valdosta, Georgia. So that's how far we came. It ended up not damaging our place, but there was a lot of damage in South Florida. So hurricanes make me nervous because I've been in a lot of earthquakes in California, growing up in earthquakes. The hurricane, for some reason, it scares me more. And maybe it's because I can't swim and it bothers me, but I'm real close to taking my dog, getting in the car, and the two of us leaving.
What do you mean the two of you leaving? You're not going to leave your wife there.
But don't worry about Danae. She's a good swimmer.
I've got the clip if you want.
Here's a clip of the video Tracy sent us earlier today of what it looks like outside of his palatial estate along the western coast of Florida, Gulf side, but it traveled across the coast. And look at those waves and the winds, and you're saying the water, Tracy, is creeping up even more and more and more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to flood and come into the house or anything like that, right?
It wasn't supposed to do that in Fort Myers, right? It certainly wiped out everything in Fort Myers. I mean, you should see the damage. I mean, I've gone by there. I can't get real close, but what those people suffered, it's heartbreaking. It really is. And even in Naples, a lot of damage. And even where I am at Minnesota Key, I'm going to take pictures and send those pictures to you guys, all the debris on the side of the road that still has not been picked up after a month.
Yep.
And it's just, I don't know. This concerns me. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like, it wouldn't make any sense. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seems like that the structure that you're in right now, the house, even though you're close to the water, I mean, it seems like it would be a lot safer than trying to get in your car. And if winds are blowing at 70 miles an hour and all the water on the roads and that kind of thing, that doesn't seem like that'd be a smart move at this point to me. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not down there.
Well, you probably are. But I'm not. I just don't want to stay here because it's on an island. So you have the intercoastal and you have the ocean, and it's like if they combine, I don't know what we do. I really don't know what we do. So I think there is time to get out and maybe head north or at least head east and be all right. Maybe I'm overdoing it. I'm going to watch the Weather Channel and keep up on it. But I don't want to be called a pansy ass. Again.
Well, you've already been called it, so you got to live with it. You got to own it, and you got to live with it.
Right.
Speaking of owning it,
if the shoe fits, wear it.
We have a quote. We had my dad on, as we do every single Wednesday, and he had this to say about you. Please listen in.
I was watching. There is a documentary about Nolan Ryan on Netflix, which is a spectacular piece. And I say that in all seriousness. I always thought, he was one of the great pitchers of all time. But after watching this thing, you just scratch your head and have a hard time coming to grips with how a guy can hold or at one time held 51 major league pitching records. They have a lot of quick cuts in that documentary of doing what Nolan did best, and that's striking people out. lo and behold, what pops up? But Tracy Jones standing there, striking out and looking like a washerwoman in the process. He wanted to get out of that batter's box. He swung at a pitch that he could not have hit with an ironing board that was up and away, and then almost fell down, but couldn't wait to get back to that dugout. I had to rewind it to make sure it was him, and it was. So just, if you get a chance to remember, just run that by him a bit when you all have him on Thursday.
Well, Tracer, your partner for 20-something years lays that out there for, tens of thousands to see right on this program. Any thoughts, reactions?
I've got to be honest with you. I could not hear Marty. For some reason, the audio was cut out. Can you paraphrase what Marty said?
He basically said there is this documentary that is out right now. I don't know if it's on Netflix, I think he said, about Nolan Ryan. And they were showing, many of the swings and misses for strike three against Nolan Ryan at various points in time during his career. And one of them was you swinging at a pitch up and away that, to quote my dad, you could not have hit with an ironing board, and that you basically could not sprint fast enough back to that dugout because you wanted nothing to do with Nolan Ryan. Hammond Eggers paraphrasing, is that
That's
accurate?
I would say that checks the box.
Yep.
Okay. Any
Well,
reaction?
let me tell you something. Let me tell you three.
Please do.
I fouled off about 5 pitches, 6 pitches, and I know exactly the pitch that he got me on. He got me on a fastball that was up and away. Just missed it, by the way. And, I struck out. No shame in striking out against Nolan Ryan. But I'll tell you, that was a pretty decent at bat. And for Marty to say I wanted no part of it, no part of that, being in that batter's box against Nolan Ryan, how dare him even say something like that? I mean, it's very hurtful that Marty would come. And what's strange about this is, guys, when I went and played in Houston, that was my best city that I played in. I mean, I'd go 4 for 4, drink all their beer, and make love to all their women in Houston. That was really strange that I actually struck out off Nolan Ryan. Lifetime against Nolan Ryan, 1 for 10 with 7 strikeouts. That's not very good.
No, that's not very good. But, I mean, look, there are a lot of guys that weren't very good against Nolan Ryan. Did you say on that clip, which I saw, by the way, that you were that close?
Just missed it. Just missed it.
Okay. Before you came on, you just missed it. I think we're going to nickname, and we talked about this as the very outset of the show today, that from now on we're going to introduce the show as Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, with Thom Brennaman and the Ham and Eggers. So Casey and Paul are over there today, and, we're trying to figure out who's the ham, who's the egg. We'll get to that, your thoughts on that here in a second. But Casey, in the middle of making a point, referred to me, specifically me, as an ex-professional.
How could he do that? How could he say something like that? What does he mean by ex-professional?
Casey?
Well, and to give it some context.
No, this needs no context.
I was just trying to say that it doesn't matter if you're an ex-professional or if you're some bigwig ESPN producer, whatever. It doesn't matter who you are. On social media and on our platform at Chatterbox, I think there's a lot of people in the world on social media that have great insight and that have opinions that are what the people are thinking, what the fans are thinking. And in the midst of trying to explain that, I was saying, like, I'm not really a professional in that term. Thom was in that seat at one point where he was a professional.
Jeez.
I mean, can you
Take
believe
that
this
knife out of your
backpedaling
back.
on this? I mean, come on. This is why I
You know
said
who
there's
says-
no context here.
Let me just say something. You sound like a politician. You know, brevity is the soul of wit. Get to your friggin' point, will you please? Quit beating around the bush. You're stabbing my partner in the back. That's so bad.
It wasn't
so
meant
ungrateful.
to be. It wasn't meant to be
Well,
a
it
stab in
was.
the back.
I asked him if he might be vaguely familiar with the term ex-producer.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I will be here very soon.
Casey, let me say something. You can be replaced. Okay? You can be replaced.
Oh, duly noted. Duly noted.
What are your thoughts on referring them as the Ham and Eggers? Or is that stealing your thunder?
No, that's all right. I mean, which one's the ham and which one's the egger? We got to decide about that. I mean, they don't make much money, right? Casey now lives in an apartment. I mean, what? Do you guys live in Norwood? Where do you guys live? I forget.
Well, I live in Mason.
He just bought a new house, just moved in, Tracer. Just moved into that new crib he bought up in Mason, your old stomping ground.
A lot of swingers there, Casey. You better watch your wife.
Duly noted.
Paul, where do you live?
I'm down a little south of. I'm down a little south of Glendale, Springfield Township.
That's big money hood over there. That's big money hood.
Yeah, right. Compared to Terrace Park or Bellevue. I mean, do you notice the difference where we live, Tom, and where these guys live? I mean, it's really taking a step
I don't.
back.
I don't at all. Why do you? Or how do you?
Well, I just think there's a lot different as far as people concerned. People, I mean, you hang out with people at Bellevue. I hang out with people in Terrace Park, Indian Hill. I mean, there's quite a difference in that and people in Mason. Or people in, where did you say, Paul? East Price Hill?
Paul?
Yeah? No, Glendale. We're
Glendale's big money
fine.
hood, Tracer. I mean, I know
Glendale's
that you've
fine.
only lived in some of the, short time you were up there in Mason. You've been in Bellevue for a long, long time. Glendale is where people like Bob Trumpy, the Castellinis for a long time lived in Glendale.
Oh,
I mean, that's big money hood over there now. It's a nice town.
Well, it's not Bellevue. It's not Bellevue.
well-
So it's kind of a step up from Norwood. Wouldn't you say?
I would say so.
Yeah, and Mason certainly is too. Now,
Come here, let me bring this guy up for 1 second. Come here, buddy. Tell him how he was so afraid last night, weren't you? Want to see his
hi,
miracles?
Tucker. Hi, Tucker.
See, look at him.
Is Tucker calming down now? Is he okay now? Is he better?
He has. See, look at that. Now he'll lick his nudicles. Okay, Tuck. See you later. See you guys. See you later. Say bye. Bye, guys.
Bye, Tucker.
Ham and Eggers.
Bye, Tucker.
Bye, Ham and Eggers.
You love dogs, Tom.
Oh, boy, I love dogs. I tell the story all the time, Trace. My wife and I, when we went on our honeymoon to the island of Bora Bora, right? So we're over there, and it just so happened that this guy who lived down the street from us in Scottsdale, Arizona, owned the nicest restaurant on the island of Bora Bora, a place called Bloody Mary's. And so he says to me, he says, hey, look, I got a house over there, doors wide open. I got a Jeep sitting in the driveway, keys are in it. If you want to drive around the island and just take the Jeep, go on over there, go ahead and do it. So he took him up on the Jeep. So very long story short, it's actually a great story, but I'm not going to spend all our time on this. The long and short of it is we found a dog living in a garbage dump over there on the island of Bora Bora, and we brought that dog home. Named it Bora, and that dog was with us for 14 years.
What kind of dog was he?
It was, it was
What
a
kind of dog?
a mutt. She was living in the middle of this garbage dump with her puppies, and like I said, it's a very long story. But the bottom line is, we found some people that put the dog on a plane, because we couldn't take it back with us. There was a quarantine kind of thing. All the dogs over there and cats are dying of heartworm disease, but they don't have any. They don't have any rabies there. So you had to go through this whole quarantine thing. The people were nice enough to take care of the dog and her puppies. They put the dog on a plane. My wife and I drove to Los Angeles, and we picked the dog up and had the dog for 14 years.
You know, I love dogs. I'm not a cat lover. I think cats are sneaky. You know, and a cat person, you know, your dad's a cat person, right?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, they're just a little different. I think we'd all agree.
Well, I think you'd warm up to a cat if you had one. I think you would.
I've had
you got something to say, Paul? Casey, are you a cat person?
Casey's a cat person, Tracy.
Hang on.
Figures.
I'm not just a cat person. I'm a dog person too. I like dogs and cats. Why
You
why
can't.
I be
Yeah,
both?
you gotta. No,
You can be
no.
both. That's ridiculous. Of course you can.
I love all
you just be an
animals.
animal guy.
Yeah, I'm an animal guy.
Okay, Casey, let me ask you a question about your cat.
Yeah.
Do you have an indoor litter box for the cat?
Yes.
See, who wants to clean a litter box? You're allowed to let the cat roam. They're outside animals. Just open the door and the cat can go outside. Why do you feel like you have to have that litter box?
Well, I mean, that's just what the cat's comfortable with. That's what it grew up with. That's how it was raised. So I just didn't want to break the habit.
I'll tell you what Marty does, and a lot of people don't know this, but I actually saw him do it the other day when I was over at the house. He actually walks his cat. He has him on a leash and will walk the cat around the neighborhood. I mean, that's different, but there's nothing wrong with that. He doesn't want to let that cat. What's that cat's name, Tom? Do you know? Little baby or something like that?
Yeah. Something big baby or little baby or something like that. Yeah.
Hey, Tom,
I don't get invited over. I don't get invited over there very often. So
Has anybody heard any more about Marty getting back into broadcasting? And I think you guys, I misled you. I didn't say it had to be a baseball team. I mean, there's a lot of broadcasting that he can do. I know they found someone for Jeopardy, but I think Pat Sajak is leaving Wheel of Fortune. What about something there? I'm just saying he's too young to retire.
You know, Tracy, there were people, and I've not been on social media my entire life until this show started up, so I'm trying to learn the ins and outs of the whole thing. There were actually people that were quite upset, a couple, and I wanted to respond to them, but when you read something on a text or on a tweet or whatever it is, you don't know if they're serious about it, whether they're joking around, whatever it might be. So you alluded to my dad possibly coming back. In circles you run in, you had heard the rumor of being the play-by-play voice of the Cincinnati Cyclones. And the actual voice of the Cyclones chimed in. Paul, you want to help me here?
Yeah.
And now I'm pretty sure he was kidding around. He seemed like he was joking around. But I don't know if there were a couple of other fans out there that weren't happy about that.
Yeah, there were some people, Tracy, that you really stirred up with that Cyclones comment.
What did they say?
Oh, I'll tell you what, we put that Cyclones clip out on social media, and it really fired some people up.
I mean, can you believe, Tracy, there are people out there, in all seriousness in the world, I'm not kidding about this, and like I said, I almost responded, and I'm like, you know what, leave it alone. Not from their play-by-play voice. What's that young man's name? I'm not a hockey fan, so I don't listen very often.
To the Cyclones?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll go back and find.
Okay, but anyway, I could tell that he was kind of having fun with it. But some of the other fans, I thought to myself, man, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but I mean, are we living in the kind of world where there is anybody out there in their right mind, with all the tongue-in-cheek stuff we do around here, is there anybody in their right mind that would take that so seriously? I mean, are you kidding me?
People have no sense of humor, and you just got to shake yourself. Do you think Marty jumped up at the dinner table and said, "This one belongs to the Cyclones"? You think he really did that?
No, I don't.
You got to get on Twitter. You want to get on, you want to stir some things up. You being on Twitter would be a big deal.
Well, Brandon runs all our Twitter, and these guys are handling all of that, and so that's good. We'll put the clips on the show. You're on that all the time. You get huge numbers when we put your stuff.
Wait a minute. Let's go back. No, let's go back. So what did they exactly say?
Here's Paul. He'll pull it up. Go ahead.
I'll read you 3 tweets. Here are the responses. One of them said, "I'm 100% confident and certain that the Cyclones are in good hands with the man they have behind the mic." And another one said, "Straight up disrespectful to baselessly talk about the Cyclones changing play-by-play voices when Andrew, the guy that they have now, does a fantastic job." Now, Andrew responded and took it in stride.
Yes.
Andrew's a good guy.
Okay. Guys, we're losing some power here. So if we cut out, we didn't have lights on last night, so just to give you a heads up.
Well, that must have been kind of romantic. That must have been kind of romantic. I mean, the sound of the ocean roar, and maybe a little rain and the lights out. Maybe you light a couple of candles around there, you and Danae. That sounds like it could be kind of nice.
13 years pulling no wool. Shut out. Tell people to relax. You guys need to respond to those messages. You don't want me to get on that message board. I'll stir things up.
Well, Tracer, before we let you go, we have to ask you, are you a college football fan?
You know, we talked about this last time.
I know, but I'm asking you if you're paying attention, because are you paying attention to who might be in the college football playoff?
I just know I'd like to really see a Pac-10 team, or is it a Pac-12 team now?
Pac-12,
yeah.
yeah.
How many teams,
and I saw a thing last
Pac-12?
night. I saw a thing last night, and I love the way they do this thing. ESPN has this thing where you can punch in different scenarios. You click this thing happening, you click that thing happening, and then it tells you what if, right? So I saw last night that if Oregon were to win out, that their chances of making the college football playoff were at 70%. So that's very
ridiculous.
High likelihood. I think USC's might even be higher than that because of the teams they have on their schedule of having to play UCLA and then playing Notre Dame. So, you might have your wish. But, I mean, you've been in the heartland so long now. Are you telling me that you would root for a team from the Pac-12 to which you have zero allegiance? None. You would root for a Pac-12 team to beat, let's say, Ohio State?
I think we just lost
Oh,
him.
there it is.
See, just when you start to ask the guy the tough questions.
There it is.
Questions he doesn't want to answer. That's what happens. No, but he had told me ahead of time there was a chance that he might lose power. It's been off and on. You heard him say the power was out last night. Man, that's scary stuff.
Yeah.
That's scary. And around here, we don't have them very often, and God forbid, when you do hear about them, because the devastation is just incredible. Mother Nature, when tornadoes have come through here in the past, obviously we don't have to deal with, hurricanes and earthquakes. But I was at the earthquake in San Francisco during the World Series. I was about 30 yards outside of walking into Candlestick Park. Had gotten Johnny Bench's wife over to the game, having a couple beers out in the parking lot with my boys, and come walking in and we get 30, not even 30 yards. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at a bus, and they had a bus that pulled up and dropped people off right next to the, literally right next to the gate at Old Candlestick Park. And I remember all of a sudden, it was like everything went in slow motion. I could see this bus, literally like a basketball, bouncing up and down, and I could see the look of people's faces inside of that bus. And then my eyes go up, and I see the light towers outside of Candlestick Park doing one of these. And, and then it stops. I mean, it happens that fast. It stops. And there was nothing falling down around us. And you're like, oh, okay, you get in the stadium. And then you find out while we're in the stadium about the Bay Bridge collapses. Hundreds of people are dying. Buildings are blowing up in downtown San Francisco. It was brutal. And to see the devastation. And then I have friends that spend a lot of time in Florida, houses down there. You heard Tracy talk about it. The devastation with some of these people and what happens in their lives. You can't help but hurt for them.
That's crazy. I didn't know that story that you were there, Thom.
Yes, I was. I was there basically as Johnny Bench's caddy. I was doing the Reds games in those days with Johnny Bench in 1989. And he had said to me, like midway through the 89 season, he had said to me, hey, you got any vacation time coming up? And I'm single. I'm like, yeah, I got all kinds of time coming up, working at Channel 5 and all this kind of stuff. And he says, well, look, I got a proposition for you. He says, I'm announcing the World Series for CBS Radio. And he says, I'll pay for your plane, I'll pay for your hotel accommodations, and I'll get you 2 tickets to every single game, no matter who plays and where they play. Well, it turns out both teams were right there in the Bay Area, A's against the Giants. He said, but your only job is to get my wife from the hotel to the ballpark like 2 hours before the game. I mean, are you kidding? No matter where these cities are, it's like, I'm getting to go hang out and have a great time and go to World Series games. All paid for. So I agree to do it. So the first 2 games are over there in Oakland. And I had some friends from college that were living out there. And so when the games come back to San Francisco, my buddies had season tickets to the Giants. So I get Johnny's wife to the ballpark, and I've got like 3 hours to kill. So I meet these guys, and we're out in the parking lot, tailgating. Beautiful afternoon in San Francisco, sunny, 70 in October, beautiful. And here we are walking up to the ballpark. I tell you what happens. We get inside. This is after the earthquake. And all the players are on the field. Fans are chanting now that this is what's going to change the direction of this series. The A's had won the first 2 games. And you're thinking they're going to play. Right? You're thinking they're going to, because there's nothing around you that you see that would make you think you wouldn't play a baseball game. So we go out to get a beer in line, and all of the cash registers are running on electricity. And we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and we find out that there's no electricity. So we're just standing there, and all of a sudden this fella standing in front of us has on an old radio headset, got him on his ears, and we're standing right behind him, and we hear him say, oh, my God. He takes the headset off. And he starts to turn and walk away, and we're like, well, what's wrong? You okay? He says, I just heard on the radio the Bay Bridge collapsed. So you know now that this is really bad. Well, my job was now to get all of my buddies back to their places in downtown San Francisco. I'm staying up across the Golden Gate. The power is out in the city. I'm driving around in a city I know nothing about. There's no phones. There's no Google Maps. There's none of that kind of thing back in '89. None of that stuff. So I'm having to drop a friend off, navigate through. There's looting going on everywhere. You can see fires off in the distance. I eventually, thank God, get on the Golden Gate Bridge. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. I look back to my right as I'm going north across the Golden Gate Bridge. And normally you would see this beautiful, well-lit skyline at night of downtown San Francisco. And I look over my shoulder. It is pitch black. I get to the hotel about 4 miles, 3 or 4 exits up on the top of Mount Tamalpais, and walk in the door. It's this big lodge-like hotel. Only had about 20 rooms in it, but a beautiful open lodge. People would come from all over just to have lunch and dinner there, have a beer there, whatever it might be. Every light in the joint's on. There are about 100 people in there drinking beer and watching the news. and you're thinking, this is the Twilight Zone. I just went 5 minutes before through looting and fires and disaster in downtown San Francisco. And 5 miles away, 7 miles away, there's a party going on. It was the damnedest thing I've ever seen.
It's crazy.
It was crazy. It was crazy. And then Channel 5, in all their infinite wisdom, said to me, hey, look, since you can't fly out of there, how about you go down there in the marina and start doing news shots for us? I said, do you people read the newspaper? I said, there are houses blowing up and you don't even know what's going to happen. There are houses exploding from gas leaks. And you want me to go down there and do news reports? They're telling people to stay out of there. Must have been the same people that run that joint and running you all over the place. All right, do we have a cherry on top? I didn't mean to bore you guys with that story.
No, it was a great story. We do have a cherry on top. And this was Twitter yesterday. I can't imagine that this is going to stay up for very long. But we all know Elon Musk bought Twitter, and his plan to help fund Twitter is to get people to subscribe to Twitter Blue, $8 a month, and part of that subscription gets you a verified blue check mark. Well, a lot of people made use of that yesterday on the launch, and they started tweeting out things under verified accounts that were very much not true. So this is an Adam Schefter that is a verified fake Adam Schefter account, but it's got the blue check mark, and this was all over Twitter yesterday.
Well, how do you have a verified Adam Schefter check mark if it's not him?
Well, because they paid for it. So they
I see.
So
okay.
this guy verified that he
Okay.
was who he was, and then
Okay.
just changed his name or did whatever he wanted to do. And this was just one example. But this was all over yesterday, Tom. It's a disaster. Yeah, there was a Steelers account that said Kenny Pickett died. It was a disaster yesterday.
There's somebody who out there who wrote that a young man died.
The internet's a crazy place.
It's a dark place, man. It's a dark
So
place.
Twitter's got to figure this out, or else that's going to be a disaster. It already was a disaster, and they started to reel it back in when they realized it. I don't know how you didn't realize this. I thought of this a week ago when I heard of it.
Well, answer me this real quick, because I am curious about this, and we're running over time. How is it that any of those social media sites, how is it that they do verify you are who you are? I mean, for real who you are. How do they do that? Take this Twitter part out of it, because I think Instagram's the same way, right?
Yeah. So
how do you verify that it's really you?
If it's on Twitter, what you have to do is you have to be a part of an organization. You have to show, like for us, if we wanted to verify you, we would show 3 different news articles that you've been mentioned in. We would show a website, like the Chatterbox Sports website, that shows that you are who you say you are as you work for what we're applying you under. So you are a broadcaster, you've been mentioned in this and this and this, and your Twitter account that you say is you appears under this and this site. So they go through like 6 or 7 steps, but now that it's...
I know, but they're not getting ID from you or anything like that, right?
You don't... you used to have to scan your driver's license. Instagram has to do your driver's license. You used to have to do that on Twitter, I believe, but you don't have to do that anymore. Okay. And you clearly don't have to do it now.
Okay.
So they got to figure that out, because that's dangerous.
Yeah, they got to get it figured out. I wonder if they have a way that you can verify under the category of ex-professional. Case, you have any thoughts on that before we leave? Ex-professional? Just own it. Just own it.
I own it. It was a slip of the tongue.
I don't think it was.
Own it. Own it. Own it. I mean, if anybody could have said slip of the tongue, you're looking at him. You got to own it. We all hope we're on the Lord's wake-up call tomorrow to come back to this program. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day. Tomorrow, big day. We always do our picks. And we've got everybody at it the rest of the way now. No more bye weeks in college football. The Bengals, of course, There are still bye weeks in the National Football League. They're on one of those. Are Reed and Trace coming up today or no?
Not Too Picky is on right after this.
Oh, well, then you better get over here.
We'll be up there. Reed's waiting, and we're going to go to a break, and we're going to come back with
Are
your
you guys giving tired picks? Who's been on a roll lately before you go? Anybody on a roll?
I've been pretty hot. 6-2, 7-2 last weekend in college in the NFL. 4-1 the weekend before college. So
because Reed was hot early in the year, but he said the other day that he's gone south. Is that true, Reed?
It cooled down.
Before we get out of here, is that true? You've gone south?
I'm worried about my next mortgage right now. I mean, it's not good. If the wife saw the bank statements, it'd be real bad. It'd be real bad.
That's not good.
If I come in with broken kneecaps, just you know what happened.
Now you're crossing into a whole different world. All right. Well, for Casey, for Paul, for Brandon, and from yours truly, the ex-professional, Thom Brennaman. We'll look forward to seeing you again by the grace of God above tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Swinney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Swinney, the original used car superstore.
To today's episode of Not Too Picky. Today is November 10th. It's a Thursday, which means we have weekend picks for you, and we have a lot of them because there's a lot going on this weekend. All the sports are back, and we're rocking and rolling. So we also have our countdown clock, which today is set for about 16 minutes, and that's going to be even more pressure-packed because Mike Schmaltz has a meeting today. God forbid he has work to do. I really don't know why he's working because he's winning so much money with us. Yeah. I don't really know why he has to work. But he is working. So we have less than 15 minutes of the show. A fifth of that is going to be Mike Schmaltz giving us his picks for the weekend. And what I can only imagine is, I don't know what this is, but this is how we're going to start the show. Casey, play this video.
Ooh. Guys, coming to you live from a bunker here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Joey Logano heard we picked him last week at plus 330 to win the NASCAR title. He did that. Then he invited us to the celebration. Unfortunately, I knew you guys' schedules were packed and you couldn't make it, so I just came myself. We're not allowed to release any video or images from this celebration. It's been fantastic. It's been going on since Sunday, and I had to sneak away to this bunker to make the picks for this week, but it's kind of comfy here, and I did it for Not Too Picky because I care. Also, shout out to the fan who was in Cintas Center, had some nice things to say about Joey to Paul Frenchner during the basketball game earlier this week. So if we're talking about NASCAR during a Xavier basketball season, especially early, it's a pretty good sign that Not Too Picky is expanding the fan base for NASCAR, and I'm sure they're very grateful for that. Let's get to tonight's Misery Bowl here between the Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. First, the Falcons have the worst pass defense in the entire league. They've given up 2,700 yards. Shi Smith is a guy that's in the receiving rotation for Carolina. All we need him to do is get 6 yards at minus 130. I think Shi Smith can do that, especially because Carolina's traded away a couple of big names, and the receiving options are more open. Shi Smith averages about 25 a game, so I think he should get 6 against a really bad pass defense for the Falcons. On the other side, I like the Falcons minus 2.5 at minus 115. Young-Ho Koo is the kicker for the Falcons. First, awesome name, and that's at least worth 3 points in this matchup. Cordero Patterson, plus 110 to get an anytime touchdown here tonight. He's got 5 this season. Then there's a rusher for the Falcons, Todd Allgaier. He's minus 130 to get 32 yards, 31 and a half. I think he's going to hit that number. He averages more than that this season, and he's kind of featured in a rotation in the backfield. So I think all that looks good here for tonight's Misery Bowl. On Saturday, the Naval Academy, plus 15.5 against Notre Dame. Navy still has that ball control offense, the triple option. Notre Dame doesn't see it much. Navy's yards per game given up rushing actually came down last week against Cincinnati, 92. Now they're down to 88. They still rush for about 240 a game. I think Navy will keep it close enough. Notre Dame's still going to probably win. They probably win by maybe 14, even if they win by 17. That kicks us out. But if there's a turnover, Navy gets the ball, can run some time off the clock. I think they'll keep it within that 15.5 against the Irish. East Carolina is plus 5.5 against the UC Bearcats. If you look at what they score and what they give up, the averages are about a point. It's about 33 points on either side. I think that's enough for East Carolina to keep it close. And then for the Cincinnati Bengals playing the beleaguered, and I mean beleaguered, Pittsburgh Steelers. Bengals are 5.5 at 110. I think the Bengals cover that easily. Joe Mixon had the big week last week. Line looks a bit better for the Bengals, and I think they got enough at least to get by Pittsburgh with a 6-point victory or more, likely more. All right, boys, thanks for having me this week. Let's win.
I do appreciate Mike Schmaltz getting ahead of the time on the bye week for the Bengals. I appreciate him.
He threw out a pick that is 10 days away.
We are just getting ahead of the curve on the Bengals and the Steelers. Sometimes you got to budget your bankroll, and that's exactly what Mike's doing here. He's saying, look, we got a lot of picks in between now and the Steelers. I'm pretty set on my Bengals and Steelers pick, so I'm giving you a forewarning on what we're going to do 10 days from now.
My two favorite were, one, the pick that happens next Sunday, 10 days, the Bengals game. And then the other one was the Notre Dame-Navy game where he said, the line's 15, they could lose by 14 or 17. And I was like, yeah. Like, he just went against his own pick. He's like, yeah, they might lose by 17.
Well, Mike did hit plus 330 last week on Joey Logano, and I do, to back up what he was talking about, I did have somebody, I'm the in-arena host at Xavier Basketball, so if you ever come to a Xavier Basketball game and you want a free t-shirt, I'm the guy that's like, I'm here in section 112 with Reed Mouse for our Kroger fan of the game. So in between promotions, I was running up and down the aisles, and somebody stood up and they yelled over at me, and I just heard a Paul. And I look over, I'm like, hey, and he goes, Joey Logano. And I was like, my guy.
Free gas.
That's
what we need.
22 cents off at Shell. I don't know how to redeem that, but it was something like 22 cents off at Shell.
It's a rebate.
Mike Schmaltz, as Sir Boy Wonder says, living from the future.
We were trying to figure out my mic situation, so I didn't. What was the deal with the lighting? Was he in the hurricane?
So Mike comes to us every Thursday from his segment. He does his segment from work. So I have to imagine that he had some meeting from 12 to 3 today that maybe he needed to make sure he was separated from any work obligations, and he had to make sure that he was good to go for this segment. So he steps away, and I don't know what he was doing.
It was incredible. Incredible.
Okay, what do you have for us this weekend, Reed? Let's go. Let's get right into it.
Mike called it the Misery Bowl here on Thursday night. I don't give a rat's butt about what this game is, this Thursday night football. Jeff Bezos, if you're going to be slinging around that money, you got to be getting some better Thursday night games here. Falcons versus Panthers, 2.5's the line. I'm not going to give a pick either way. I'm not going to give a pick or the over-under. I think I'm going to leave that up to the wheel of winners that is undefeated in professional football currently. And if I had to bet tonight's game, which knowing me, I probably will, I'm going to bet the over on Marcus Mariota throwing 157.5 yards. He's done it in half of the games, but I think I'll take that over just because I saw basically what the Bengals did against the Panthers defense. I know it's mostly on the ground, but that being said, I think Marcus Mariota is gonna step out and get over 157.5 yards.
Yeah, this game tonight is a disaster. I don't understand why we have not found more than one, maybe two good Thursday night games this year, and for all the money that Amazon paid them to get Kirk Herbstreit, to get Al Michaels. Yeah. What are you giggling about over here?
The real Spirit Cat said, honest to goodness, I thought he was standing outside someone's bedroom window.
Maybe one of the best segments we've done so far in this show. Maybe I'll get him next week. We're going to have to get an update next Thursday on his Bengals pick.
Yeah.
If he still feels the same way a week from now. Guarantee you he'll have some more thoughts on that. We don't need to spend too much time on Thursday Night Football. This is a disaster.
UC plays tonight.
UC does play tonight.
22-point favorites.
Yes, they are playing Cleveland State tonight. UC basketball playing Cleveland State tonight. UC football plays tomorrow. Cleveland State, bad team. Their head coach, Dennis Gates, he left. He went to Missouri. They have a new coach. Don't have a lot back. Cleveland State's generally a pretty good team. So if you just are going by a name, usually they're a pretty serviceable mid-major team. That is not the case this year. They are a bad basketball team this year. They just don't have a lot going for them. New coach, like I said.
They're not even the best college team up in Cleveland. They lost to Notre Dame College, Division II school.
It's not a good situation for the Vikings.
Yeah, 22 points. I like the way UC played.
Yeah.
Last week, I'm taking UC to cover 22 points against a team that just lost to a Division II team.
Yeah, I also think that UC can cover that. Also, UC's team total is at over 80.5 right now.
You like that?
I do like that. UC shot the ball really well the other night. I thought Cincinnati played very well on offense. I like what they brought to the table. Now, you're playing Chaminade, who's not even Division I. They scored 98 points, but look, if you're going to go out there and you're going to be able to score at the rate that you're going to need to score, look at what they did. 4 guys were in double figures. David DeJulius played pretty well. Victor Locken. I'd like to see more out of Victor Locken, but I'll save that for a college basketball show. We only have 6 minutes left in this show.
Yeah.
I am going to stick with honestly, I would stick more with the team total at 80.5, but I don't hate the 22 for UC either. Cleveland State's not a good team.
Yeah, 22. I'm taking UC.
We do need a chat pick.
We do.
Right now, the chat pick is Vikings plus 3.5.
Against Josh Allen?
Well, is Josh Allen playing? Is the question.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good question.
Who's their backup?
Well, it was Mitch Trubisky. And then he's gone. Josh Allen is day-to-day.
Okay.
Bill's backup quarterback.
He'll probably play.
Bill's backup quarterback this year.
It's Case Keenum.
Is it Case Keenum?
Went to the NFC Championship.
Ooh,
okay.
Vikings revenge game.
Don't hate that. Going to looking at some college football, there's 2 games that I kind of like, and one is I got sold on it by Schmaltzy. He said, I could see Notre Dame winning by 17 on the 15-point spread. I like Notre Dame against Navy. I know Navy was just 19-point dogs against University of Cincinnati. Notre Dame's a better team than the University of Cincinnati, so I'll take Notre Dame minus 15 going to Navy. I think they win by more than 2 touchdowns, so give me that. Also, Tennessee, 20.5-point favorites over Missouri. Missouri has shown to be a formidable opponent. Tennessee obviously just played bad against Georgia. I think they come back. I still think they're a college football playoff team, and I think they're going to cover that by 20.5.
TCU plus 7 against Texas.
I can't.
I'm not taking it.
I'm
not taking it. I'm telling all of you out there, don't slip into the bait. Don't take the bait because Vegas is giving it to you at plus 7.
There's a night crawler in the water. It's never went well.
Be smarter than TCU plus 7. Now,
can I tell you a TCU line that was surprising?
Okay.
If you get on DraftKings and odds to make the college football playoff right now, UCLA has better odds than TCU. UCLA.
There are 4 teams that have better odds than
plus 700.
Yeah. TCU is plus 700 to make the
UCLA,
playoff.
the third team from the MAC or from Pac-12, has better odds than TCU.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Michigan has better odds, obviously. Tennessee has better odds. UCLA has better odds. Oregon has better odds. USC, Ohio State, Clemson, LSU. All those teams I just listed have better odds to make the playoff than TCU.
They don't even think TCU is going to win this week.
Yeah, what that's telling you is just that Vegas doesn't think that TCU is going to win out. And
that's the only way they get in.
That's the only way they get in. I don't think a one-loss TCU gets into the playoff. That's just my opinion, though.
Casey, we need you to start looking at the props.
I already got one.
Oh, he's got one. All right, we got 3.5 minutes.
Case.
Let's go. Let's hear it, Casey.
Go.
Let's hear your prop.
All right. Justin Fields has been balling out.
Balling.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen the stats on him.
King of the North.
But he's been just putting up some numbers. I got him at 64.5 yards over for plus 105.
Rushing?
Yeah, rushing.
65 rushing yards from Justin Fields. Who they play?
They play the Lions.
Oh.
That's almost easy.
In Chevy Field or?
In Chicago.
Oh. Okay.
Chevy Field. That took me a second.
Frischner Field.
It should be. No, it should be the Selvin Field.
Selvin Field.
Ford jacked it up.
Ooh, we got Real Spirit Cat saying plus 1.5 over the Rams for the Cardinals. I can't figure out either one of those teams.
Cardinals and the Rams? Talk about a toilet bowl.
Can't figure out either one of them.
We have 2 minutes and 35 seconds left in this show. We need a chat pick. We have 3. We don't. Whatever gets a second suggestion is what we're going to go with.
Paul, what's your lock of the weekend? I feel like you don't give enough picks on here.
You know what's funny is you were saying that we go through all. I feel like I facilitate everything on this show.
Paul picks.
I was going through that. I was re-listening to the last 3 shows when we put the timer up there, and I'm sitting there on the way home listening to the show, and I'm facilitating everything else that's going on. And then I sit there and we get to the end of the show on the shot clock, and I haven't given any picks. Okay, so I have a few picks that we're going to go, and they're going to be a couple of basketball picks for
give a visceral reaction
tonight. I like UC minus 22 tonight. I also like their team total.
Yeah.
The problem with college basketball for the weekend is that you don't get college basketball lines until they come out like 14, 15 hours before the game starts. A lot of times they're right up until it. But a lot of times you can look at the computer projections and get close. Xavier right now projected to score 80 points against Montana tomorrow night. I would lean over on the team total again. I like team totals on favorites early in the season just because so much weird stuff can happen. Backdoor covers, weird stuff can happen. I like that team total. I like Texas minus 7 at home. I think they get it done. Maybe a teaser. How about this one?
Ooh, tease it. Tease me, baby.
A teaser maybe, but I like Texas. Let me go back and find it. If you want to go like this, Texas.
Are you teasing college football?
Well, I was going to give you. I was going to give you a money line. I was going to give you a money line. I was going to give you a money line. Texas money line. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
Arkansas money line. Arkansas plus 150 at home against LSU.
Okay.
Arkansas been playing not great all year. 30 seconds left in the show.
Casey, we need a breaking news. We need breaking news.
Breaking news.
We got a Spur lock.
Oh, the Spur lock.
We've got a Spur
We got 26
lock.
seconds.
PJ Walker over 171.5 passing yards tonight for the Spur lock. I'm going over on the Marcus Mariota, 157. We're taking both the overs.
All right, and the chat pick is come on, Reed, help me out here. We got 10 seconds. The chat pick is
the Vikings with no Josh Allen.
Vikings plus 3.5 is the chat pick. Thank you, Sir Boy Wonder. Everybody, thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. Big weekend of sports.